Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So I appreciate all you listeners out there. Any feedback you have, feel free to reach out to me and I'll have those links however you would like to reach out to me. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. So this episode is going to center around sitcoms again, and I'm going to give my take on it. This time I'm going to talk about a particular sitcom from the 1970s. And I think this sitcom, One Day tongue-tied there, One Day at a Time, really just, in a nutshell, for the most part, wraps up the aspects of the themes from the 1970s that were really prevalent and that was really singing a lot in the mainstream culture, and then what people, reflect and think about when when the topic of the 70s and social awareness and things like that come up. And so this ties in to what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday to wrap everything up. And so if you like my take about sitcoms and the aspects of how it fits into our culture and the reflection of it, feel free to give me comments about it. All right, here we go. Okay, One Day at a Time. One Day at a Time was part of the universe of, oh my gosh, I don't know why his name is phasing me, but he created shows like All in the Family, The Jeffersons, and so forth. And so, for the most part, what these shows were doing in its element was breaking down the aspects of counterculture, breaking down the aspects of what was really being thought about when we think of counterculture versus mainstream culture. And All in the Family was a really good example of that. And then after I speak on All in the Family, I'm going to get right into the heart of the matter about my thoughts and about the show One Day at a Time. So All in the Family centered around, a traditional family, middle working class, blue collar class family, and the trials and tribulations of everything. Carol Connor's depiction of Archie Bunker was earnest in itself. It was a lot of things that were hit and miss about the show. When you get in the aspects of race relations, you get in the aspects of all, things like that, and then you get in the aspects of a man in his place in his family, and then a woman in her place in her family with his wife, and then his daughter and everything, the aspects of merging and understanding other generations, that those were kind of campy, but, Norman Lear, here we go. That the creator of everybody, all these shows, that was his name, Norman Lear. And so, you got that going. And for the most part, it did its best when it did do its best to try and talk about serious issues in a way that is a little bit honest, but at the same time, it's not so off-putting to where it might not be able to view, you on prime time, or you might not be able to see it at all on network television, which is, pretty shocking for its time, because most of, we're riding a wave of transitioning with shows like the Andy Griffin Show, or shows like Happy Days, shows like, even though the Andy Griffin Show was on its last leg at this time, or shows like this, where, Three's Company, shows that are lighthearted, but they kind of touch on subject matters, but it's not really all that serious. And then it's supposed to be for the whole family to enjoy. But most of the topics that were on All in the Family were polarizing, because it was really trying to get into the cuffs of, why do people see this when in this situation about black and white relations? Why do people think of this when it comes to feminism and the liberal woman and everything else? Now, one day at a time, centered around the aspects and the disposition of breaking down the traditional family. And the mom was in herself. She left her home because she wanted to find herself, which is weird, because it never sets up the aspects that, she had a real reason to leave her husband, or a real reason to break up her family. It was all because she felt like, she was not her. She gave too much of herself into her family, which in itself is a very selfish action to do, because when you become a mother, when you decide you want to get married, that itself is an action that's supposed to be selfless. And so, so she just decides to take her children, her young daughters, teenage daughters, mind you, uproot them, and not have it to where they have some a prevalent or stable environment, to where, that gets in the way of their development. And so I don't think that, who knows, Norman Lear, his thought process behind it. I don't think maybe he was trying to do contribute his aspects about interpretations, or how it's very a good thing for the new woman of the 70s here to be her own self, and then, being an ally for that. I think maybe that was the intention. But I'm in myself speaking from my point of view about it, of how, again, these notations really strip away the foundation of the family structure, which, when you have a strong family unit, that really builds up the stability of a culture, stability of society. You don't get what I mean by this, you don't have a whole bunch of people trying to figure stuff out, just wandering from left to right, not really having any true direction. And that's the issue. I mean, that it's to each his own. And if you can make it work, you can make it work being a single mom. But for the most part, it's hell to have that on you, that immense and wonderful responsibility to be a parent and trying to maneuver everything on your own. You cannot do it. And then most of the times in the reality situation, a single parent has outrooted sources to help. And those outrooted sources, when they run thin, and then that single mom is really stuck up a creek. And so to celebrate and champion the aspects, and I see all this now here, particularly, Lifetime was on the wave. Oh man, it's bad. Oh my God, and then we get into the aspects of Hallmark of pushing certain agendas about the aspects of how magical it is to be a single mom and how empowering that is. Let's speak on the truth of the matter of the situation. Are you a single mom because you had no choice? The only way that I can see that the real possibility of being a single mom here is because you're a widow. Either way, a single mom, single father, because they were widowed. But you say, oh, well, what about this, Mary? How come, you're saying you should stay in a relationship with somebody that's unstable? Well, no, you shouldn't. But at the same time, you got to ask yourself this question. Why do you think that is prevalent to be, not only stay in a relationship with someone that's, unstable, or somebody that is mentally or physically abusive to you? Why do you think that that's fine to stay? But the worst offense of it is to not only stay, to produce life with people like that. Why? Either side, male, female. For a man to stay in a relationship that's abusive, no, it's wrong. It's just as a woman to do so. So when we get back to this unit of one day at a time here, sometimes it seems like it's really going on a slippery slope by rewarding and praising misguided behavior. And so that was a lot of things that prevalent at that time. A lot of stuff that were pushed in the mainstream culture. It was this notion of, oh, I am woman, hear me roar. Or I am woman, I can. Well, that's nice to have that prevalent, to hear me roar, to be strong and independent. Yeah, but at the same time, be smart about it. Be humble about it. Be selfless about it too. At the same time, because my whole point of saying this here is that, you alone in itself, having that focal point of marching your way through life. It's just you and you alone and your ideas, and that everything falls into place because of your ideas, and that's it. That's a really destructive life in itself. And that's the honesty of the situation of, when we get into books, which was the bedrock about feminism, when we get into the Feminist Mystique by Betty Friedan, and you'll get figureheads like this. They're moving away from the point that a woman, when she reaches the age where she's 18 and older, she should have those prevalent ideas of how she wants to live her life. And then why is it that you have to prevail and push that the true way of happiness, of being a modern woman in the world, the true gateway to happiness is your own needs and your needs alone. And you can't have that kind of mentality if you want a balanced, happy life. And see, the mom on One Day at a Time was riding that wave of feminism really well. She was riding it fast and hard, and and so forth, and doing all kinds of surfer moves and a big wave, but it came crashing down when she was trying to figure out, okay, crap, what the heck am I going to do now for my children? Like, where's the paycheck going to come from? I got to put food on the table. I got to do this. I got to do that. And figuring all that stuff out. And her daughters are seeing and witnessing that, and they're trying to establish their own identity within that. And then, you get the super here, where even though he's seen as this sleazy sort of, male chauvinist guy, but as things prevail a lot here in this sitcom, you'd see otherwise, that he has more depth to everything. And then it's realized that, his influence on these girls here, and then when they transition to being from teenage to adulthood, that had a good influence, because that in itself, that gave them the kind of this instructions of where they want to see fit their own lives, being adults. And I think that if that was intentional or not, they got that. Norman Lear got that right in itself, with honestly saying, "Oh, it's fine to have this mentality. Oh, I'm gonna do everything on my own." But what's going to happen, and how is that going to work when it's not, when you can't, when things aren't working right? You need somebody to give you a different perspective about things, to get out of your own head, so you can resolve the matter and the problems that you're facing because of the decisions that you made. And yeah. So the revamp of One Day at a Time, again, and I'm going to close out with this. Again, it's one of those things where, and that's what's so troubling about the aspects of mainstream media of today. They don't want to do anything that's new. They just want to reinvent something that's already been told before here. And so they from what I understand, it was a Latino cast, and they were given their perspective about the aspects of maneuvering one day at a time in an ever-changing world of today, and how that works, and how the aspects of the Latin culture, particularly the traditions of the Latin culture, how does that change in a society that is ever present, that, there's something wrong with just embracing your traditional roots, or you're oppressed because of this, or you're this because of that. And that's fine, to have that sort of mentality, but do something a little different. That's all I'm saying. So I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will have those links to do so. This reaches the end of the Harpering Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye bye for now.